What's going on, guys? Hope you're having a great day today. My name is Steve. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to World War II Rescue Buoys, secret floating hotels of the English Channel. I've never heard anything about this before, but this just sounds really fascinating to me. And based off the thumbnail, I think this is definitely going to be a very interesting video. But like I said, I don't know anything about this, so I really don't have much to add to the beginning of this video. So let's just go ahead and dive in and check out World War II Rescue Buoys, which are supposedly secret floating hotels of the English Channel.
If you were to sail over the English Channel in the summer of 1941, you'd find yourself stuck in the middle of a dangerous, watery no man's land. This thin stretch of sea was all that lay between Britain and what was now Axis-occupied Europe. And above you, a vast and brutal aerial campaign was being fought to secure control over the skies around the British Isles. Picking your way through minefields and navy patrols, you might however spot on the water an odd floating buoy. But getting closer you'd find a deck that you could climb up onto and a small door that led down into the steel buoy itself.
Oh, wow.
Under the waves. Climbing into the depths, you'd be amazed to find that in the dim light was a fully furnished shelter with beds and fresh clothes, medical supplies and rations, even board games and cigarettes to keep any occupants entertained as they awaited rescue.
Oh, wow, that's crazy, man. I wonder how many of these floating hotels were in the English Channel. And so were these placed there by the British military? I'm guessing that's the case. That's what makes sense to me, and I guess we'll find that out. But can you imagine if you happened to be stranded in the middle of the English Channel and then you were floating along and you came across one of these, how much of a blessing that would be? And you could wait it out in this, not I would say comfortable, but at least somewhat comfortable place to where you basically had everything you needed to survive. That's wild. That was a great idea, especially back, during the Second World War. I mean, with everything going on, I mean, something like this in the middle of somewhere like the English Channel just made a lot of sense, honestly.
Had stumbled across was a rescue buoy, one of the strangest and most unusual methods of air-sea rescue employed during World War II.
Dude, that's so cool.
Scores of these buoys, both German and latterly British, were moored along flight paths and busy stretches of water.
German did it too.
As a lifeline for downed pilots, airmen or sailors to climb aboard and await rescue.
I had never heard of these before.
I've been slightly obsessed with these rescue buoys, which I know is an odd thing to be obsessed with, but there's something so weird and interesting and captivating about them, both
I agree.
The German version and the lesser known British variety that was made. And over the course of this research, I found loads of information that I didn't know about, loads of amazing original documents and photographs, even film appearances of these buoys, which surprised me. But perhaps most exciting to me of all, I actually managed to find one.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay, so this must be a British version of what we were seeing. What we saw back here originally, I can't tell what that flag is. Honestly, I don't know. I don't want to, well, hold on. I want to go back just a second. Where are we at? 147. Okay. I wanted to look at this again real quick. You don't mind. What flag is that? I can't really tell. I don't know. But so is this a German variety? This isn't a German flag. So I don't think. I can't remember what the German flag looks like, but I don't know if anybody knows. Let me know in the comments. Is this the German variety? It kind of looks like what he, like, let's see. I don't know what variety that is. That is so cool though, man. This one might be the British variety. It kind of looks a little more elongated like the one we see here. Let's go ahead and check this out.
Organized resistance in France was no longer possible. The government faced two alternatives: retire to North Africa and carry on from there, or give up the struggle.
Following the defeat of France, Britain had been left in an isolated position against the German onslaught that had so overwhelmed Europe in the opening stages of the Second World War. Certain that Churchill and his government was not going to capitulate, Hitler had ordered the Luftwaffe and Kriegsmarine to prepare for an amphibious invasion.
I've got to look into Churchill.
Named Operation Seal.
I don't really know a lot about him.
Before any such invasion could continue, however, Germany would first have to secure air supremacy over the British Isles. As a result, in July 1941, the Battle of Britain began, a protracted air campaign in which the German Luftwaffe unsuccessfully battled for dominance in the skies and waters above Britain, facing off against both the Royal Air Force and the Navy's Royal Fleet Arm. For pilots on both sides, aerial confrontations could be chaotic, frantic and deadly. Pilots who were shot down but able to bail out and deploy a parachute might live to fight another day, but much depended on where you landed.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Pilots flying over Britain were at least safe in the knowledge they were operating over friendly territory, but clashes and confrontations over the water were becoming increasingly dangerous for airmen who found themselves stranded at sea. By this time, the Germans had already developed and run an organised search and rescue service within the Luftwaffe, the Seenohrdienst, or Sea Rescue Service. With so many pilots bailing out or being forced into the waters around Britain, they began to develop simple moored rafts, also known as Rettungsbuoys or rescue buoys, that airmen could climb aboard and stocked with rations and signalling equipment. The design of these buoys was initially very simple. Early models were little more than wooden rafts painted white above the waterline and equipped with a watertight box containing emergency supplies such as fresh water and a first aid kit, as well as flags and signals to call for help, with passing Seenohrdienst patrols regularly checking each buoy.
Rear deck for deployment and retrieval. Okay. Yeah, right off the bat, I can see, why they started improving the design, because you don't know how long you're going to be stranded on one of these, I'm guessing. And so being out of the elements inside of this buoy, would definitely make a big difference on how long you could really, withstand the elements and whatnot. And you could probably, more safely store a lot of equipment and supplies inside of a buoy like that instead of this open-aired raft, so to speak. How have I never heard of this? So far, I'm getting that the Germans had their own version of these floating hotels, if you will, and the British had their version. Are they the only two that had these versions of these safety rescue buoys? I'm guessing there. Did America ever have any? I don't know. And I'm curious. It looked like at the beginning here, whereas right there, it looked like they're still out there. Are there some versions of these rescue buoys still in the English Channel today? I think it's just a really good idea, not even in just wartime. It just seems like a really good idea to have something like this, somewhere like the English Channel, and just in case people, I don't know, people go swimming in the English Channel now. And just for safety purposes, it seems like a great idea. And have like a way for people to call for help or something like that. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Are they still out there? Probably not, but it'd be really cool. I'd love to visit something like that.
To resupply or redeploy them when needed. By early 1941, however, clearly seeing some potential in the rescue buoy idea, Colonel General of the Luftwaffe Ernest Udet proposed a more extensive and substantial buoy that would allow shelter and supplies for stranded airmen over multiple days. It was an unusual proposal, but moored far out from shore and along commonly used flight routes, these floating rescue stations would, in theory, offer the prospect of a few extra hours or days of survival for stranded men.
Hopefully days, not hours.
Could reach them. Typically built in a hexagonal or rectangular shape, these new, larger rescue buoys were all metal with a distinctive 6-foot-tall funnel that rose high above the waterline and a small deck with railings to climb up onto.
Wow.
The real secret to the design, however, lay inside. The small conning tower covered a ladder that led down below.
I'm sorry, guys. I just need to pause this for a second. I just want to take a look at this real quick. I mean, it's really not too much to look at right here. It's just amazing because this is floating somewhere. I have no idea where this is floating. I'm going to guess this is in the English Channel, meaning that some of these are still out there. Is that accurate? That is cool, man. That is awesome. But this thing looks in really good condition. This can't be an original, or they've taken care of it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. What are we looking at exactly, guys? This can't be original. Although it does kind of look like it a little bit. I have no idea. That's pretty cool, though. That's really cool.
And inside the buoy itself Within this cleverly arranged cabin, with roughly 43 square feet of internal floor space and 8 feet of standing room, was 2 bunk beds, along with a cupboard space and storage for everything a stranded airman may need to survive multiple days at sea.
Wow.
Dry clothes and first aid kits were provided, as well as ration packs and up to 25 litres of drinking water. A bank of batteries provided power for lighting and the onboard radio. A small alcohol stove provided both heat and space to cook, and stuffed into compartments around the small cabin were treats such as chocolate, brandy, cigarettes,
wow,
and board games that could be used to help pass the time until rescue.
That's awesome.
The small conning tower contained a signal lamp, 10 flares, as well as a signal pistol with 20 red, 10 white, and 10 smoke cartridges, and 10 parachute flares. 3 rows of tubular railings surrounded the small open deck and were also found along the waterline for persons to cling onto. Having clambered aboard, those seeking rescue could raise a black anchor ball as well as a yellow and red striped flag to indicate the buoy was occupied, and later designs were also fitted with automated radio transmitters. Along with being numbered for identification, the buoys were painted bright yellow above the waterline, and red crosses against white oval backgrounds were painted on each side of the turret. Each one was anchored in place.
Okay, so that's just a rescue flag. At first I was like, is that a flag of a country or something like that? I couldn't recognize what country it would be, so it didn't really make much sense, but that's just a rescue flag. All right, that makes a lot more sense. I don't know. I've never seen this flag. I'm just guessing that's what it is. Maybe it's a universal rescue flag I've never seen before. Let me know in the comments, guys, what exactly is this flag? What does it mean? I'm guessing it's just a rescue flag.
With a 320-foot red and yellow striped rope, allowing limited drift and to indicate to aircraft in distress the direction of the currents around the buoy. The German Ministry of Air Navigation organised the creation of a fleet of such rescue buoys, but it's unclear exactly how many were ultimately made and deployed. A report dated for the 23rd of September 1940 lists that over 100 of these buoys, named Udette buoys after their patron Ernest Udette, would be created and deployed under the responsibility of 3 emergency buoy commands located in Cherbourg, Boulogne and Calais. These commands would deploy the buoys from tender ships and also be responsible for monitoring each one. Records give us indications of their use, as well as reports of losses, repairs, broken moorings, and even leaks and damage from either stray fire or direct attacks on the buoys themselves. Yeah,
that's what I'm wondering. Like, if the enemy basically finds out, if an enemy finds out that an enemy is inside of the buoy, I mean, wouldn't they just attack the buoy? Wouldn't they just? I mean, it's still better to have that ability to be safe if something was to happen. If an airman was to be shot down and they land in the water and they're able to have this versus not. I mean, that just totally makes sense. But I am curious how many airmen may have been killed by the enemy, in one of these buoys or whatnot, or if anybody was. But that's crazy, 100 of these. So I'm guessing all 100 of these, I think you said 100, were they all in the English Channel? I'm guessing so. I'm guessing that's where all these were. But that's wild. That's wild.
There are actually several photos of the time of buoys washing up on shorelines due to them breaking their moorings and drifting ashore. At least one rescue buoy was also used as a guard post. When the Germans occupied the Channel Islands, a rescue buoy was set up as a floating guard post in Bray Harbour in Albany, moored in the centre of the bay with a crew of 3 equipped with a heavy machine gun and radio. The wreckage is also apparently still at the bottom of the harbour. So obviously the sight of these German rescue buoys turning up in the channel didn't go unnoticed to the Allies, and actually most of the best information we have about the contents and the makeup and the construction of these buoys comes from information and intelligence reports, in this case from the US Army in 1942. Now, one of my favourite lines in this is, the Germans have developed deluxe buoys for flyers of the Luftwaffe brought down while operating over the English Channel. It also goes into a lot more detail. Cabin accommodates 4 people. It mentions here cognac to relieve chill and cigarettes to quiet the nerves are also.
Wow.
But over the page here, you have this lovely illustration. I think this thing is beautiful. And I suppose it shows you what this would have looked like if you were approaching it from sea, which is how most people are going to encounter these. And again, if we go over the page once again, this is a really lovely illustration of the interior. So this here is, well, a hexagonal design. Most of the drawings and the photos that I found are of square or rectangular designs, but they do mention this report that they did vary. This was, like I say, the US Army report. The best report of all comes from this magazine. It mentions here, German rescue buoys anchored in the channel. I absolutely love this thing. I think it is the most gorgeous drawing. Reminds me, actually,
I like that too, a lot.
Mechanics front covers. It actually reminds me of the front cover of the Popular Mechanics that had the heli home on it. Looks very similar to that with this
heli
lovely
home
cutaway. Now you can see here,
what's that, man?
Same design, conning tower, square or rectangular shape in this case, as opposed to the hexagonal one that we saw earlier. But then down below, you get this amazing picture of everything, basically, that would have been inside one of these. You've got 2 sets of bunks on either end.
Oh, wow. Hold on. So I just want to get a quick look at this real quick. 6 bottles of soda water, metal jug. Does that say? I can't tell what this says. Does that say cigarettes? I can't tell. Biscuits, chocolate, rope. I can't tell what that says. Wow, man. So I think they said the average one of these could sleep 4, I believe.
You got spare clothes. They even say 6 towels, so they tell you exactly how many spare towels was in the inside of one of these buoys. You have the supplies as well too. You've got a bottle of brandy. 6 bottles of soda water. If you know your Germans, they like their sparkling water, so I'm not surprised that there's soda water in there. What always makes me laugh slightly is 3 buckets. They don't really specify what the 3 buckets are for. If you've ever seen Demolition Man, maybe it's something like the 3 shells. I don't know. But it's, yeah, a bit of an unusual one. There's also an interesting note up here, drawn by our special artist, G.H. Davis, with official assistance. So obviously the Admiralty or the British officials in some ways were giving the information to this artist about the inventory, what was on the inside of one of these things, as well as their construction. While the Germans had raced ahead with their air-sea rescue service and the unique lobster pot idea, on the Allied side, losses of pilots was becoming an increasingly pressing concern, especially at sea. Unlike the Germans, Britain had nowhere near the level of coordinated air-sea rescue in place at the outbreak of the Battle of Britain. Recovering and
That's kind of surprising to me a little bit, to be honest.
The responsibility of the Royal Air Force Marine Branch, which operated watercraft such as the 100 class ASR or air rescue boat. But underfunded and poorly equipped at the outbreak of war, they were stretched too thin to conduct effective search and rescue operations, putting Allied pilots at a serious disadvantage should they find themselves stranded at sea. British authorities had assumed that the sheer amount of marine traffic, from trawlers to naval vessels operating along the coastlines, would provide enough cover to rescue downed pilots. They were wrong, however, and during the opening months of the Battle of Britain, an estimated 80% of downed pilots were dying at sea, compared to only half over land. On one day in August alone, it's believed 15 out of 18 airmen who bailed out were lost at sea. The Germans were beating the British at rescuing air crews in the backyard, and it was becoming an embarrassing, shameful and needless loss. Something had to change. In early 1941, an emergency meeting was convened by Air Marshal Sir Arthur Bomber Harris to try and address the terrible losses of Allied airmen at sea. The Royal Navy offered to take the sea rescue role, but the RAF declined, instead creating the Air Sea Rescue Services, which expanded and improved on the job originally undertaken by the Royal Air Force Marine Branch. The Air Sea Rescue Service essentially took what was clearly working for their German equivalent and copied them, including the unique German lobster pots. It wasn't clear how effective these rescue buoys actually were, but in January 1941, the Air Ministry agreed to the building of 16 of their...
All right, so these are the British version of these buoys. Okay, so these look a little bit more like boats, you know. I guess that's how I would describe it. They definitely look a little bit more like a small boat of some sort than what we were seeing with the German variety of these, which were like just kind of a, I don't know, like a pod of sorts. This actually looks like this had quite a bit more room. I'm not 100% sure yet, but yeah, I think this is going to have quite a bit more room, at least what it looks like anyway.
Their own rescue buoys, officially named ASRs, or later Cuckoos, which would contain sleeping space for 6, and much like the...
Sleeping space for 6. Life buoy. So, wireless area, Red Cross marking, lantern, mast... Lockers contain dry clothes, provisions, cigarettes, books, bunks, blankets, cabin.
the German versions store fresh clothing, cooking supplies, fresh water, as well as first aid kits, signalling equipment, and even luxuries like books, cigarettes, playing cards,
wow,
and
man.
games. To those who found themselves climbing aboard, they would be greeted with a small note. This ARC rescue float welcomes you and hopes that you will be comfortable and that your stay will be short.
Wow.
Though your host is absent, you should find all you need. Dry and warm clothing, food, drink, and a smoke, a stove to cook with, and blankets to sleep in. Please help yourself, but do not consume all the stores on the first day.
Wow.
The final design
That's
of the
awesome.
British Rescue Buoy would differ quite a lot from that of the Germans, but you can kind of see the design philosophy approached by both. I've actually drawn a picture of them here. You can see this is a sort of cutaway diagram of both. Quite simple compared to the previous illustration that I was showing you earlier on, but illustrates the point a little bit better, I think.
Dude's a good artist, man.
German rescue buoy, and then here on the right, the British ASR or Cuckoo. Now, what's quite interesting is you can see that with the Germans, they clearly took what was a buoy, scaled it up, and furnished the interior, essentially.
Right.
Here on the right, though, the British decided to basically build a boat. Now, it even has, you can see there's a bow, there's quite clearly a stern area. You even have what looks to be almost like a little bridge. But in the case of this,
it's a pod versus a boat.
Equipment, no engine or anything like that. It is as immobile as essentially the German rescue buoy. That said, I think if I had to choose one of these to sleep on or stay on, I think I would probably go for one of these.
Yeah,
the only
absolutely.
first-hand accounts we have are really of the German rescue buoys, and they are described as being incredibly uncomfortable, which makes sense. They are essentially a cube floating and bobbing around.
Yeah, they're a pod in the middle of the
massive
rough waters
to help weigh them down. They would have been a difficult place to get a night's sleep.
Can you imagine? Like, have you ever seen a buoy? I think you guys actually pronounce that slightly different. I think you guys say buoy, something like that. But I've heard him say it a little bit differently than I say it. But if you've ever seen a buoy out on a rough lake, for example, that thing is just. I can't imagine basically sleeping in a large version of one of those. That has to be extremely nauseating. You know, I can imagine. But you know what? If the other choice is to like die at sea, you would definitely, obviously, choose that. And it wasn't supposed to be necessarily extremely comfortable. It was supposed to be comfortable enough that you could survive until someone rescued you, right? But if I agree with him, if I had the choice, I would definitely prefer the boat-looking version. I think you would have a little bit better sleep. It'd be a little more stable. So I think that design is much, much better.
Now, another piece of information I have is this really cool original document that has a lot of information on the ASRs. Now, they only made ASRs 1 through 16, so they weren't nearly as numerous as the German rescue buoys. They were a little bit more substantial, though. They were about 32 feet long.
You can sleep 6, right?
10 tons, and that's because they were made with quarter-inch welded plate steel. Now, you can see here the kind of side diagrams of them. At the front here, you've got these ladders that you can climb up on. I actually illustrated this, but you can see there was essentially railings that ran around the edges, similar to
they had the railings too.
Clamber along.
It's a good idea.
The entrance was located at the back. Now, at the back here, there was a sort of
stairs.
Stepped slopeway, I guess, that would take you up and then
that's really
the hull itself.
That's a great way to build that.
A few other little bits of information. Main machinery is listed as dumb, which just means, of course, there was no propulsion on these things, and they were all manufactured by Carrier Engineering Company in Wembley. One of the most interesting things about this information sheet that I have is that it tells you all the different ASRs, 1 through 16, and it tells you the station that they're based at, coordinates. But you can also see remarks here. Reported lost, 2210, 41. In fact, quite a few were lost around, October, November time. And, it wouldn't have been uncommon for these things to break their moorings, drift away. Some of them may have been sunk by either friendly fire or enemy fire.
That's what I was going to say. When they say lost, what do they mean? Were they sunk? Did they just float out of the English Channel and out to sea somewhere? Like, I'd be curious to know, are there any that are sitting at the bottom of the English Channel right now? And obviously, he already showed that some have been salvaged. Like I said earlier, I would love to know if any are still floating out there somewhere. That would just be really cool if you could actually visit one that's still floating and it still kind of has that, all the stuff, the way it looked back from the 40s. I'm guessing at this point, you know, they would have been so rusted out, man. They probably would have been sunk at this point, I'm guessing. But who knows? Who knows? Let me know in the comments, guys, if there are any out there floating somehow. I'd be shocked, though. I'd honestly be shocked at this point.
Springing a leak and just sinking at anchor as well, too. Final interesting note as well on the back here. Along with the ASRs 1 through 16, there's also ASR 17, 22, 23, and N1 and E5.
What's the difference?
And you can see these are all ex-German.
Oh, they took the ex-German ones in.
Rescue buoys like this that had either drifted their anchor or been captured or towed back.
So they used them
at the end of that film.
The British used them.
And then they were repurposed as British rescue buoys.
Wow.
Following the end of the war, the ASRs were quickly removed from service as they posed a danger to shipping. Some by this point had broken their moorings and sank, but
oh yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I hadn't even thought about, like, you know, the English Channel is a huge shipping lane, so like there's a lot of boats going in and out there, so these wouldn't get in the way. But I just want to see this design real quick. So that's pretty cool. That's amazing, actually. What a great way to enter. You know, it's much easier than trying to climb up, you know, onto this massive, you know, pod thing, this buoy. This is just a very simple thing, probably less slippery. And the door's right there. All right, cool. It's actually lower to the waterline, though. It's not as high as the German variety. I'm guessing this is the British variety. It's got to be. This is at least what it looks like from the side. I can't tell how long it is over here. I don't know. I think this is the British variety, though.
But at least 2 of the ASRs, and possibly more, were converted into target craft, where they eventually dwindled over the years to only a few surviving units. One particular craft,
it was
ASR-10, originally moored in Dover, somehow avoided this fate and was converted into a yacht in the 1950s. Eventually, it ended up stranded on a slipway in Gourock on the River Clyde, where this unusual craft sat derelict until it was taken into the care of the Scottish Maritime Museum in Irvine, where it has been repainted and now on display at the front entrance. Being so close to me, I couldn't resist going to take a look at it.
Yeah,
myself.
I'd had to go look at that too, man.
There it is. After all these years and months of research, I finally found a somewhat complete air-sea rescue.
That is so cool. Wow. Wow. That door almost looks watertight. Was that door watertight?
A much more ship-like design compared to what was essentially a hollowed-out buoy for the German.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, guys. I just noticed something. There's windows right here. That's cool. So, like, I know the German version, it didn't seem to have windows when you're down there. I think these are windows. That's what they look like to me. And so that's awesome because they actually had natural light when you're down there. And also, you know, on this version, you could technically, you know, if you don't want to be stuck inside all the time, you have this huge platform here because it basically is a boat that you could walk around on, you know, during the day. That's really cool. That's such a much better design than the original German variety. But I understand originally the original purpose was simply to keep the airmen specifically, rescue them. So it didn't necessarily need to be extremely comfortable, but, you know, I do believe that this variety is obviously much more comfortable than the other version. No question at all.
Out buoy for the German version. You have these really strong and solid mooring points on both sides of the vessel so that you can secure it. You've got these ladders as well here that you could climb up.
Please do not climb on the vessel.
Too. And then up top, you might be able to spot.
I'd love to go in that, man.
As well, that's what you would have used for securing your signaling
That'd be fun to go in there.
Lights, flags, and various things that you could hoist up to signal that there was someone on board. If you actually follow these railings around, it takes you to this area at the back, which stranded airmen.
They took out the steps
in the water
that they had here.
Then climbed out of, walked up, and then gone in through the doorway up there. And you can see it's a very strong and well built
Looks like
vessel.
it.
And of course, it would have to be out potentially for years,
yeah,
moored in the North Sea, the Channel. You can actually see as well how poor the state of this is on the underside.
Wow.
She sat rotting away in Gourock near Glasgow for years. And she was apparently used as a private yacht for a while. So somebody obviously tried to kind of convert her into a yacht. This is the original colours. She's been repainted. This is actually, funnily enough, the same colour as the German rescue buoy in that film. One of our planes is missing. So that one was probably a requisition German one that had been repainted in the official air sea rescue colours for the British authorities. So yeah, really interesting, but yeah, very sturdy and a much, much bigger vessel than I actually expected it to be.
What a great video. I had never heard of this before, learned a lot about these floating hotels. This was amazing. It was such a great idea at the time. I mean, honestly, it would be a great idea now. Like, while we don't have, you know, the type of wars going on, you know, well, we do have war in the world, but you know what I'm saying? We don't have like a world war going on at the time right now, but this is just good to have out in the open water for people that, you know, their ship sinks, or, you know, God forbid, you know, someone's plane is going down and they have to jump, you know, with a parachute, or someone is like, for some reason, they're swimming the English Channel, and usually when they swim the English Channel, they actually have a follower, or I forgot what you call that, following them. But either way, this would be a pretty cool thing to have today. But obviously, who's going to pay for it? Who's going to put it out there? Is one of those things that, you know, is, I mean, I guess a lot of people wouldn't find this important enough to put out, you know, just in peacetime, you know what I mean? But this was amazing, guys. I would have loved to been able to see the inside of one of these today in color. You know, we did get to see a little bit of the insides, like, you know, what they supposedly looked like and whatnot. But like right here, where is it? I don't know, wherever it went. I can't even find it. Right there. That's amazing. It's amazing. What do you say? I love this type of topic, guys. So, you know, please feel free to drop recommendations in the comments section for all sorts of stuff like this. This is the type of thing I would never have, you know, normally discovered. You know, this is the type of thing either someone's got to recommend to me, or I'm going to somehow have to come across it by accident, because I had no idea this existed. And that's something I've loved about this journey. I've learned about so many different things and so many different random topics, things that I never knew about before at all. I'd never heard about them, and this is one of those things. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me in my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, guys, peace.